What's up guys, Spartanator here. Today we're going to be making a beat in FL Studio in the simplest way I could possibly put it and the fastest way I could possibly put it. A lot of people give up just by looking at the site of FL Studio or any DAW for that matter. So I'm here today to show you in the simplest form how to make a beat in FL Studio. And I have included a starter drum kit for you guys with some simple sounds that will help us along the way, and we're going to use it today to make our beat. That will be in the description and the pinned comment. So to waste no more time, we're just going to get straight into it. First things first, we're going to want a copy of FL Studio. You guys might already have this installed, but in case you didn't know, you can actually get a free trial by going to FL Studio's website. I'll leave this in the description as well. Essentially, the difference between the trial and the full version is you can't save your project files, so you can't be working on a beat, save it, and come back to it. You have to make the entire thing in one sitting, but considering it's a trial, that is pretty good. To get the full version of FL, it starts at $100, and that is kind of a big commitment, so this is nice that they have this on their site. So get that installed and we will move on to the next step. Alright, so if you go to the link in the description or the pinned comment, I've included a Google Drive link to take you to my starter pack. I decided to go with Google Drive to make this nice and simple for you guys. I also added some bonus sound effects for you guys to use, but essentially it has 2 of every essential drum that we're gonna need for a rap beat today. In case you couldn't guess, that's what we were gonna be making. So yeah, get this installed by clicking the download button in the top right, and we will get started. Once you have the pack installed, open up FL Studio and the magic can begin. So like I said before, right off the bat, FL Studio can look pretty overwhelming considering all the buttons that we see on our screen right now, but don't panic, you don't use half of them. So again, to keep this as simple as possible, we're just not going to use any hotkeys or anything like that, nothing fancy. We're going to keep things nice and straightforward. So to get things set up in FL Studio, we just downloaded a drum kit. So now we are going to put this drum kit in FL Studio. So to insert our new drum kit, we're going to go to the top left of our screen here to the Options tab and select File Settings. As you can see, I already have a lot of packs installed already, but essentially you're going to click the File button on the left. I'm just going to scroll down to a empty slot, find where you have the file saved, click on it, and press OK. Now the starter pack is in FL Studio and ready to be used. Alright, next is a formatting tip. This is your channel rack, and this is going to be your new best friend in FL Studio because this is essentially your band where all the instruments are and play. You're going to want to see this at all times, so go to the left side of the channel rack here, click this drop down menu and select detached. I already have it enabled, but essentially that means you will always see the channel rack no matter what you're doing, because some of these tabs will disappear if you click on other things in FL Studio. Now that everything's set up, we're going to start making our beat. First, we're going to select our BPM. This is a hip hop beat, so we're going to have a little bit of a higher BPM. Go to the top left here. It's set to 130 by default, but we are going to select 160. And you can use your scroll wheel, or you could just flat out click and drag up or down. And we're gonna select 160 because that's a good BPM for a hip hop beat. Now that we have our speed, we can get to making a melody. Now you may have noticed that in the channel rack, we already have some sounds selected here. These are just the default sounds that FL Studio gives you. We're not going to use any of them because they're pretty crappy, honestly, but we are going to use this to make our cheat sheet, as I like to call it. So pick a sound, doesn't matter which one, and this green dot on the left here just means it's enabled. It's a quick way to mute and unmute it. So we're going to mute it by left clicking it once, and we are going to right click on the actual sound itself and press piano roll. Now this is where you will actually make your patterns. Essentially, if I were to make a pattern right now, I would just lay down some notes and you would press play and it starts playing your pattern. Notice how in the top left it says pat and song. This just switches between the actual pattern you're creating and the actual thing that will be playing in the final product. Right now, nothing will play in the final product because we have no patterns made. But like I said, we're not actually using this sound, we're using this as a cheat sheet. Now what I mean by that, basically, a lot of people don't know a lot about music theory, including myself, And this is a pretty easy way to stay in key so your sound is fully in tune and you don't got to worry about anything. We're going to go to the top left here on this little circle, and we are going to go to the major scale to keep things simple. Once you have that selected, just select a note. We're just going to keep it even more simple by choosing C major. See how it laid out a nice scale for us to use? Now we are going to make this scale a little bit bigger so we can go in the higher or lower range notes. So we're going to hold down the shift key and drag it out, and then stop holding the shift key and we can drag it up and just stack them. So repeat this process to stack it a couple times. That's pretty good to me. So here is our cheat sheet. We're gonna X out of our piano roll, and now we can select some sounds to really make a melody. Just click the plus sign to add the program. We're gonna use GMS just because I think it's pretty straightforward and easy to use. For those of you who have the trial version, I believe that this is also going to be a trial version, so just know it may mute at random times. So to lay a note down, we can either go into the piano roll, or there is a quick way to lay down notes right here. So I'm just going to scroll through these sounds to see if there's a sound I like. Basically, we can scroll through the sounds by clicking this arrow here until we find something we like, and I just like to keep it playing while I scroll through these sounds here. You may have noticed these knobs on the side here. This one is the volume knob, so we're just gonna click and drag up to increase the volume. Alright, so now I have my sound selected. It's the digichord sound if you guys want to follow along with my beat. But we are going to right click to delete our note that we pasted here, and we're actually going to go into the piano roll again by right clicking and left clicking on piano roll. So now you guys notice that there are a bunch of white or grayish notes on the left here, and those are our ghost notes. So these are the notes that we just placed in the kick here that we aren't using, and this is our cheat sheet. Like I said, we're in C major, so we're just going to start with a C note. So you can click and drag these notes as long or short as we want them. So the key to staying in key is place a note and then skip the next ghost note here and go to the one after it, and boom, we've got a chord. So now we can make a melody, and we're just going to do a simple 4-step melody right now. So here we have a simple 4-chord pattern here to use. Very, very simple. Also notice I took this an octave down. Basically, to do that, you want to hit Control A and then hold Control and press the up arrow, and it's up an octave. I'm just going to keep it an octave low. Also, like I said, to stay in key, if you want to add more notes, it's the same principle. Just skip one and then add another, like so. I decided to go with the harsh lead 2 sound instead of the digichord, but we have made a simple melody. I'm just going to add a couple notes to make my melody sound a little better. So I actually ended up making it even more simple. There are no chords in this melody, but I'm sure you guys don't mind hearing that. So we have our first melody laid out, and to make a counter melody, it's pretty much the same process. So now I have another GMS in the channel rack. Now you can see ghost notes of our melody that we just created. So we can actually take our note here and make it correspond with the rest of this melody. So now with melodies out of the way, we can get to the drums. Here's where our starter drum kit comes into play. So on the side of your screen here, you may have noticed a bunch of things. You're gonna find my drum kit that I put in the description, and you will see that all the folders will pop up with all the sounds in them. So we're gonna start with our 808. This 808 is used on a ton of different rap beats nowadays, so we're gonna go ahead and use this one. I'm gonna pick out all the other sounds right away too. Keep in mind you can just flat out click and drag the sounds into our channel rack here. So we have all our drums picked out, and I'm actually going to use these sound effects later on in the beat, but we will save them for later. We're not going to put them in the channel rack. So like I said, we're starting with the 808. Turn that knob all the way up, and we are going to go into the piano roll. But before we do, we are going to select cut itself. This basically allows the 808s to stay independent so they don't overlap each other when we're making melodies. Just going to make a simple pattern. This 808 in particular is coming in a little delayed, so we're going to click on it. This is the sound wave, and you can see there's like a little tail at the end of it. We're just going to get rid of that by scrolling on EMP start until that tail is gone. So the 808 is still quiet even though we crank the volume all the way up. You can fix this by going to the bottom of the piano roll where it says velocity, and you can click and drag the velocity up and drag to the right to max out all of them. Now it should be a lot louder. Another way to fix this is to get rid of the bass in our melodies. So we're gonna go ahead and click this icon in the top middle here. This is our mixer. We're not gonna get too in depth on mixing today, but let me know down in the comments if you guys wanna see a mixing tutorial next. Here's a very basic way to help our melodies out. We're just gonna left click on our melody instrument here and right click on one of these inserts in our mixer. Then we're going to go to channel routing and route selected channel to this track. And we're just going to put both of these melodies in the same insert. Now we're going to go to the equalizer over here, and this basically is high frequencies, low frequencies. So we're going to take out all the low, all the bass, and that should help our melody out a little bit. We're just going to X out of here. Now we can add the rest of the percussion. We're going to go with the clap next. And for hip hop beats, the standard is to just go here and click each one of these. So you basically put a clap in every other gray section here. And a nice little tip for the hi-hats is if you right click and press fill each 2 steps, it'll be that standard hi-hat pattern we're used to. So before we give this a listen, let's click on the sounds here. This is our hi-hat. Notice how it says use loop points is enabled. Get rid of that. Sometimes your sounds will start to overlap. So if you hear anything goofy, go and make sure everything has use loop points unchecked. Now let's give this a listen. We're just gonna adjust the volume knobs here a little bit to make these melodies quieter. Gosh, I hate the speeds. This just feels so primitive to me using all these basic sounds, but again, we're keeping this nice and simple for you guys to follow. So if you want to make your hi-hats a little more interesting, you can just right click to delete some of these. So we have made all our key components. Now it's time to structure the beat. So notice how we are in pattern mode, and technically this entire thing that we just laid out here is one pattern still. So to make everything its own pattern, we're going to go to the top middle here where it says pattern 1. We're going to right click and press split by channel. Now all of this disappeared. We're going to X out of the channel rack, and we are going to drag in all of our patterns here. Here's our main melody. Here's our counter melody. Here's our 808, clap, and hi-hat. So now to structure this, we can just basically select where we want instruments to start and stop. Now that we are in this section, we can switch to the song tab. If this ever disappears for you guys, just click this little icon in the middle here and it'll show up again. So we're going to start by just including our main melody. We can press the select tool in the top left and drag all of these over. They won't drag over immediately because you have to select the pencil tool. Now if we just click on the melody here, it'll select that melody and basically copy it, so we can press again and it'll paste it. Same goes for everything else. You can just click and copy and paste essentially. We're gonna have the main melody play with the drums once and then go to the counter melody. So this is essentially just what we're gonna put for the entire thing. So another quick tip is you can just press the select tool once again, click and drag, and then select the pencil tool, hold shift like we did before in the piano roll, hold left click, and then drag over, and boom, we just copied and pasted that whole section here. So now we can add some finishing touches, and I'm going to add both of our sound effects that I've included in our starter pack. Notice how I can just flat out click and drag these directly into the beat. Sometimes with just sound effects that you want to add throughout the beat, it's easier just to place exactly where you want them. Another cool thing about having these sound effects just flat out in the beat is you can shorten or make it longer. In this case, I actually just want to use one part of this sound, so this is pretty nice. By the way, the more you zoom in, the more you can adjust this. So zooming all the way in really has those minute details that you can adjust. Also, before I wrap this up, I'm just going to show you guys quick how to export your beats. Go to the top left, press File, and then press Export, and then select WAV file to make it the highest quality file. You're just going to want to name your beat and then save. So that is just about it. That is about as bare bones as I can make it. I really hope that this was easy to follow. Now, this beat is going to give me a headache, so I'm just gonna spice this up before I end this video.
Spartan, stay with the heat.